Hi, I'm Sanjana and welcome to this YouTube series where I'm speaking about all of the different exams after CAT and what is the test strategy that you should follow. So today we are talking about SNAP, which is conducted by the Symbiosis Institutes, and they all accept this score. So there's a bunch of about 16 institutes. So let's get right into it and understand all about the exam itself. The exam itself is a 1 hour exam and we'll have 60 questions in that 1 hour. All of these questions will be multiple choice questions with 4 options each. For every correct answer, we're going to get +1 mark. For every incorrect answer, we're going to get -0.25, and we'll get 0 for every unattempted answer. Now, two really good things in SNAP are that there's no sectional timer and there's no sectional cutoff. So sectional timer not being there means that you can spend more time on your stronger areas to maximize your scores, or perhaps on your weaker areas to get a little extra. So if I'm solving verbal, for example, which is my strength, I'll quickly go through all of it and then I'll spend a little more time in the other sections. The other advantage, of course, is since we are looking only at the overall percentile, if we are weaker in one section, we can spend less time on it and we can make sure that we've solved as many questions as possible from the section or sections that we are strong in. So if your strength is quant, for example, you can try and solve all the questions and spend the remaining time in the other sections. Now on the screen, you're also seeing the 3 different sections and the number of questions out there. We'll also talk about it more a little bit later on in the video. But another unique thing about SNAP is you can actually take this exam 3 times. Last year, we could take it 2 out of 3 times, but this time they've opened up all the 3 slots for us. You have the dates in the screen again in front of you. And remember that there's no normalization. So if the average score or the highest score in the first slot, which is on 10th December, is higher or lower than the other 2, they are not going to manually adjust it the way CAT does across different slots. So here you can actually look to take all the 3 slots or at least attempt the exam a couple of times, not just because one slot might be a little easier than the others, but because you're giving yourself the best shot at it, right? So that's something which you hopefully have already registered for the exam and gone for it. Now let's look at all of the B schools which accept the SNAP score. Now the Symbiosis Institutes are the primary ones. I've listed out some of the most important ones out here. SIBM Pune being the one which is typically ranked in the top 10 or top 15 B schools in India. SCMHRD, a little bit newer, but again another good B school. A lot of people think that it's a B school for HR, but that's not the case. Don't go by the name. They have all of the specializations. Then you have SIIB, which is for international business, and a lot of other B schools. A total of 16 Symbiosis Institutes which offer an MBA. And a unique thing is there are a lot of specialized MBAs that they have. So telecom, healthcare, media and communication, sports. If any of these are your interest area, then definitely you can look at the specific institutes as well. Right? Now, if you go to the info zone section on mockcat.com, you'll get a lot more details and you'll have all of the institutes listed out along with what are the percentiles that they have considered over the past few years in the SNAP exam. So now that we've understood all about the exam, let's delve a little bit more into the sections and what are the cutoffs that we have. Now, we have general English. I'll not be going too deep into the syllabus because you have all of that in our InfoZone section, but you will not have any RCs and there will be considerable focus on vocabulary and grammar questions. Then we have analytical and logical reasoning. We'll be getting 25 questions out here, and all of these questions are singlet questions, or at best you can have maybe a couple of questions which are together. So this again can definitely be a high scoring area. In fact, given that there are 25 questions, this definitely would be the one where you probably get your maximum marks. The last is quant, DI and DS, DI being data interpretation and DS being data sufficiency. So you will have a couple of questions in data sufficiency also, totaling to 20 marks. Now, which questions you attempt is something which depends on your maximum score, but the percentile or the marks that you would need are somewhere around 98 percentile plus for SIBM, which is 40 marks or higher, and for SCMHRD you'll need somewhere around 36 marks, which should get you to the 94-95 percentile. Again, please remember that these are predictions based on the last few years. What will happen in this year will of course depend on how students score. So if the paper is a little tougher, for example, then the marks required for these percentiles could come down. Or if the paper is a little easier, or because students have signed up for 2 or all the 3 attempts and overall the scores are becoming a little higher, then in that case you can expect the marks required for the percentile to go up. Since the exam itself is a little bit on the easier side in terms of the questions being easier than CAT and individual questions, so of course you can sort of solve as many as possible. Given that in SNAP, the questions are easier than CAT, and you can also maximize your number of attempts because you can move between sections and they're all singlet questions. The marks that you require to achieve a particular percentile is definitely on the higher side. So if you see 40 out of 60 marks to get 98 or 99 percentile is quite high. So make sure that you've done your prep. I'll talk about test taking strategies which you can adopt. Try to do that, take some mocks and go and do your best in this exam. So let's look at the strategy which I'm recommending out here. So this is how I recommend that you split your 60 minutes. Let's say 10 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, and the last remaining 10 to 20 minutes. So in the first 10 minutes, just finish off the general English section. You'll have 15 questions. You might even take a little less time if verbal is your strength. Try to solve as many questions as you can. If you absolutely don't know something, leave it. But if you can take an educated guess or where you're torn between a couple of options, you can mark something. If you are absolutely not sure, like I said, you can just leave it. Please don't spend too much time on questions which aren't your forte. So for example, if it's an idiom which is asked and you have no idea what it is, just look at the option, see if you can figure something out. Otherwise, leave it quickly, right? Now, for the next 15 or 20 minutes, I would actually recommend about 15 minutes. You can go for the logical reasoning section or quant out here. That is something you can play with in mocks, but take somewhere around 15 minutes. Now, what you should do is do it in a couple of passes. So in the first 10 or 15 minutes, try to solve as many questions as you can solve in about a minute each, right? So every question you read, you can quickly calculate and solve it, or the approach, or for the LR bit, you have an idea of what to do. You're reading the options, you can go for it. Just go for it. Any question which you feel that you either will take a little more time to figure it out, or you need to maybe chart it out in pen and paper and it's going to take you about a minute and a half or longer, you can just go for the mark for review. Make sure you read all of the questions in this section. That's 25 questions. Make sure that you get to the end of it simply by solving the quick solving sections. Now, I recommend the same thing for the quant section as well. Here again, every question which you can quickly solve, go for it. Any question which either you need to figure out how to solve it, or you feel that it's just calculation intensive, so it will take time, you can mark it for review. So now this bit, like I was saying, you can either go for the general English and then LR and then quant, or general English and quant and LR. That's totally up to you. But the amount of time that you're spending in these two sections should be somewhere around 15 minutes, or a max of 20 minutes if you're finding that there are a lot of questions that you can solve. But make sure to keep checking the time so that, let's say if LR is the second section that you're solving, in 30 minutes you should be close to the end of this section. Otherwise, you definitely need to speed up, and you should keep tracking the time probably in 10-minute increments. Don't keep checking it after each question. That is going to break your focus, and those little bit extra, even fractions of a second, will start adding up. You can become more nervous. You might leave easy questions. Every 5 to 10 questions, you can keep looking at the clock. Right? So now with all the 3 sections done, and you've got to the end, you've read all the 60 questions, in the last 10 to 20 minutes, that's when you start solving all the mark for review questions. Here I would recommend that you start with your strength. So if you're quick in calculation and that there are 5 or 10 quant questions which you could solve, go with those. There's no sectional cutoff, so you just need to maximize and play to your strengths. If LR is something where that there were some questions, maybe you did it halfway but you got stuck, so you left it, or whatever it is, whichever section, either LR or quant, you have your mark for review questions, those are what you should go for. English, don't spend too much time. Hopefully you should have done as much as possible in the last 10 minutes. But if there are 1 or 2 questions which you've marked but you were maybe not fully sure, you just wanted a fresh look, you can just look at it. I don't recommend double checking and taking too much time to sort of just, okay, this option A or option B, because all that will lose time. So we have to try and solve as many questions as possible. So that's what you should go for. Now, this is a strategy which has worked for me and which has worked for our students that have taken SNAP. Try it out in a few mocks, and hopefully this helps you to boost your marks. So that's largely it when it comes to SNAP. Now, 3 key takeaways that I would want to leave you with. The first is, there are so many Symbiosis B schools, there are 16 of them, and each of them shortlist students at a different percentile. Now you can find these percentiles in our info zone section. These are predictions, of course. Look at it as plus minus 3 or 4 percentile, and choose the Symbiosis institutes that you want to apply to. So the mocks that you take, you'll get your score, you'll get a recommended percentile. Based on that, you can choose to apply to a few more. Many of them are still open, so this is something which you could consider. Now, the next thing which you need to do is maximize attempts. This works in two ways. You should take the test also preferably a couple of times. But anyway, now the time for that is past. So what you need to do is you need to maximize the number of questions that you're solving. Make sure each and every question in the 60 you've read through. Whatever you can quickly solve, you solve. Use the method which I've recommended and make sure that you are going for your strengths. Now, in order to maximize attempts, use the question paper palette to help you. I've already outlined the method of how you can mark some of the questions for review. So make sure to do that. Practice that in your mocks as well. You can also look at the question paper view, but definitely marking for review is something which will help you out here. So that's all about SNAP. Hopefully this strategy works for you. All the best to you from me and everybody here at MockCat. We're putting up a series of videos on the different exams and we have a bunch of videos lined up. Please put your questions in the comments. Any content you want us to post, do that. Please do consider subscribing as we'll be coming out with a lot of guidance when it comes to forms, interviews, all of these exams and so on. So all the best and thanks for watching.